And we're back with our weekly college football sprint with Zach Smith. Got a lot to talk about, a lot of crazy things happening in the world of college football. You guys ready to get into it?
Let's do it.
I'm so ready for this, V. Let's do it.
Let's get it. So we'll obviously start off with Saturday's big noon kickoff game, which ended up being a very exciting and interesting game for a variety of reasons. Zach, tell us your initial just pure reaction to the game.
I mean, I think that the two storylines that everyone's talking about, right, are Justin Fields is a human, right? He's not just like some superhuman superhero. He's human, and that's the first storyline. The second storyline is BIA is not BIA right now. Yeah. The secondary is, I mean, just really underperforming. So those are the two things that everyone's talking about. And when here's what I took away from it. I always watch a game and I'm like, all right, what can I learn? Right. Like that happened. We all saw that happen. Anyone with eyes and a brain knows Justin Fields struggled and the secondary sucked. Like that's just real. Yeah. So what I was like, all right, what can I learn from it? And the one thing I learned is what is everyone going to do to Justin Fields? Because there was 41 drop back passes called. 27 of them were pressures, were blitzes. And that was Indiana's game plan, right? Yeah. And Fields was 100% had a 100% adjusted completion percentage when he was not blitzed. So that just tells you everything you need to know, right? Why would you ever not blitz him? He also was 0 for 7 when he was under pressure with 2 of the interceptions. So it's like, I'm a defensive coordinator. I'm like, the last thing I'm doing is playing base coverage on this guy. Like he'll just destroy us.
Yeah. So, and let's get into that, right? Because that's, Partha brought this up in another podcast and we talked about it. Is one of the bigger issues with Justin Fields is his inability. I don't even want to call it inability, but his habit of holding on to the ball too long and not getting rid of it. And it seems like it's something that has become a consistent story. How does something like that get fixed? Right. Because it's like, it seems to be continue to go along that line where every game we're seeing the same issue.
I think it's really just, so I have two opinions. One is just my personal opinion. The other one is, fact-based. My personal opinion is he is waiting so long because this offense is featured around 2 guys, and that's a problem. And Ohio State is acting like they only have 2 guys. I know those 2 guys are excellent. I'm not saying they shouldn't be the main course and the side dish, but you need an appetizer, you need dessert, right? Yeah. And I can't for the life of me understand why Jeremy Ruckert is not more featured. Why Trey Sermon, and maybe he's not good. Maybe he's not any good. That could be why, right? We don't know because they don't do it, but they don't throw. Like I think about Clemson, right? When they had T. Higgins and Justin Ross. And if you try to take those 2 out, which you can do, you could take 2 receivers out of a game. Yeah. They had Amari Rodgers and Travis Etienne, right?
Yes.
They had that appetizer and that dessert, right?
Well, to your point, we do have Jackson Smith, I would struggle with, and Jigba, who has crushed it earlier this season. Right. To your point, Ruckert was great a couple games ago.
I mean, we have a bunch of guys. There's a bunch of talented 5-star guys just sitting around. And then even, we saw DeMario McCall, who's been there for a while, flash. He can be good in spurts too. It's like there are other weapons here that aren't being used. And, I think it's hard because none of us want to be overly critical and overly praised, right? Because I don't think any of us, when we talk on this show, we're not, people may label us Ohio State homers, but we got to be honest. Ryan Day still is a second-year coach. And there are going to be growing pains for him as a coach as he develops through the actual experience of calling games. And, another thing that happened was not kicking the field goal, Zach.
Yeah.
We're up 7. That's a mistake. There's no other way to put it.
It's a mistake, and I always go down to execution, though. I mean, they go for it. They should have converted. Justin Fields missed two opportunities to convert, and it's just, I mean, they absolutely should have kicked it, but it's just unfortunate. I think one of the things that I've praised Justin Fields about this year is his decisiveness. That was his biggest improvement from last year, and you saw a major regression on Saturday. I mean, I was looking at the analytics of it, and kind of the demarcation point is 2.5 seconds, right? You get rid of the ball in under 2.5 seconds, and that is usually a good thing. Over 2.5 seconds, outside of maybe some game plan, heavy play action, over 2.5 seconds is usually problematic, right? And he was on Saturday, 86% completion percentage under 2.5 seconds and 38% over 2.5 seconds. And he was over 2.5 seconds twice as many times as he was under 2.5 seconds. And I think his average snap to throw time was 3 seconds. And it's like, that's just, I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for that, but you saw it on this second and third interception, holding the ball forever. Nobody's there, starts scrambling around, ends up getting hit as he throws it and just lobs it right to Indiana. It's like that. Bad things happen, especially for an athlete. Like I'm yelling like, bro, take off. Like you're a freaky athlete. Just go.
Yeah.
Zach, when you're watching a game like this, does it concern you? I remember at the Rutgers game, we were complimenting how many different types of plays that they ran. And something that stood out to me is in the second half, we're struggling and it seemed like we're trying the same thing over and over again. I understand, Justin Fields is a ridiculously good quarterback and we saw him get punched in the face and, kind of have to recover from that. But does it concern you that we didn't do anything out of the box or different?
I mean, maybe a little bit, especially in that game. I mean, other games you could be like, oh, you know what? They're just winning, trying to win the game, trying to, work on their offense. And I mean, that was the game of the year, right? Unfortunately,
right.
Like as sad as it is, Indiana was the game of the year. And I look at it really one of two ways. The way we're talking about it right now, right? With a little disappointing. You'd like to see more, maybe not flexibility, more diversity on offense. Yeah. You'd like to see better performance by the secondary. Justin Fields not make those mistakes. But then I always go back to Clemson struggled with Boston College, needed a fourth quarter comeback. Yeah. Alabama went to the wire with Ole Miss, who's 3-4, whatever they are, 4-5 now. It's like every team has these games. It's just unfortunate that it was like the one formidable opponent Ohio State played was when they had it, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so hopefully it's just a bounce back. I mean, they were, 35-7 with 12 minutes to go in the third quarter. Like if they just keep the pedal to the metal, keep doing what they did for over a half of football, they win that game by 40 points. And I think that's what everyone was hoping
that
for.
Was obviously. Even with the interceptions from the first half.
Absolutely right. It's not like then the mistakes happened. No, that was through the mistakes, right?
Yeah.
35-7, including everything we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think, just for the conversation's sake, it's worth digging a little bit deeper into exactly pinpointing what the issues on defense actually are and how to fix them. You pointed out the secondary, but I think also a second part of this is that our defensive line isn't getting pressure, and we're not being creative in creating that pressure. Something you brought up in our conversation offline, Zach, is that there are ways to create pressure that we're just not doing. Like we're not blitzing. We're not being creative in figuring out a way to do that. How do we fix these things?
Well, so I think they did, and you just didn't see it yet. I was way more pleased with the schematic game plan against Indiana. I think the reality was Michael Penix Jr. is a good player. He got rid of the ball because if you look at it, like, all right, so there was 51 pass attempts in this game. There was 49 in the Rutgers game, right? So comparable. Against Rutgers, the defense pressured the quarterback 21 times, right? Against Indiana, they pressured him 46 times. So they doubled the pressures. They just only resulted in 2 sacks. And I really put it on the quarterback. He got rid of the ball. He got out of situations.
He got rid of it fast. Yeah.
And so I was actually pretty pleased with the COVID bye week, what it did for the defense as far as schematically. I still would love to see Baron Browning be a rush end on third down, but maybe, I mean, I'm not at practice. Maybe he's not dynamic at it, but from what I saw last year, I think he could be really good. But just little things like that. I think they're on the right path. It's just the coverage. The coverage element is just, I mean, it's disgusting, to be honest with you.
What do you see there that's troubling? Like,
I think it's personnel based, to be honest with you, and I don't want to single any kid out. I've been going back and forth about this. Like when there's 2 players that are not playing at Ohio State level, and they need to not be playing. Like it's just as simple as that. And I think Shaun Wade is a whole nother conversation. I mean, in my opinion, he was one of the better players in that game. Obviously, everyone knows the pick 6, so that's an obvious reason. But this kid used to be lined up in the slot, and outside of when they played press man coverage, his role was to be an underneath zone dropper or a blitzer, right? That was his whole identity in 19. Then you fast forward this year without a spring ball, without a summer. Now he's got to be a thirds corner. And it's like that. It's taken some time for him to grow into that, playing the ball as a bail corner. It's not his strength. Obviously, we didn't know that because he was in the slot the whole time, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's two different conversations. Shaun Wade is coming along. You know, by the end of the year, I think he'll be one of the best corners in the country. It's just Sevyn Banks was a little disappointing. He almost looked injured to me. There was a couple deep balls where he's chasing him, and I'm looking at it like he looked like a 3 technique, a D tackle trying to chase him. I'm like, go, Sevyn. What? And then, you know, I think the safety position, it's time for a little roulette. Let's see if we can get another guy in there, see how it goes.
Yeah, I agree. And I like how you're not. It's important for us not to really put this on our players, right? Because you've said this plenty of times, you know, these are kids that are being coached to do certain things. And, you know, it's kind of on the coaches and on the adults to kind of figure out how to put them in the best position to win. And if that means changing some of the personnel in the safety position or in the slot to do so, just to get guys going, that's on the coaches to figure out, because we've got depth of talent. We've got other guys that can step up. And I think the guys that are playing also clearly have the talent. It's just a matter of us all of them working together with the coaches and figuring this thing out.
Yeah. And like, I always think of it this way, and this really applies. I'd imagine this, you guys could tell me this applies to business and anything else in the world, right? The coach's job is 2 things: develop the player and then put him in a good position to make the play. Yeah. As simple as that, right? Yep. And when I watch the film, they're in the right position to make the play. They're just not making the play. Yeah. And so it comes down to developing them and getting them to make the play. Yeah. It's like you could say, oh, I hate the bail corner stuff. It's like, it's body on body coverage, and they just got to play the ball better. Like we could hate off coverage, but it works. Like they're right there. Now they just got to go make the damn play. Right. And so that goes to development. And sometimes I get concerned when a coordinator is running the show and his position group is underperforming, right? Yeah. That's always makes me nervous. Like you think of 2014 and the linebackers and Luke Fickell performed excellent, right? Yeah. The quarterbacks and Tom Herman performed excellent. I've been around other position coaches that when they take over and become a coordinator, their position group dips. Why? Because of that individual development. And that's where I think we're at. Carey's got to get these guys to play. Simple as that.
So question on that. There were multiple times this guy Freifogel on Indiana had, I mean, a lot of guys on him covering him and came down with the ball. Is he a real deal receiver, or is that lack of execution?
I think it's both. Yeah. I mean, I think it certainly is a lack of execution to a point, right? I mean, when it comes to pure talent, Ohio State had the edge, and that kid, he played really well. He's got great ball skills, but a great corner in the right position, it shouldn't be that hard to break up a pass, right? Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, it's way harder to make a contested catch than to prevent one. Like just being a receiver coach for as long as I was, it's harder for me to go catch the ball if you were standing next to each other than for you to stop me from catching it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's a lack of execution first. And also that kid was,
he made some plays.
Oh my gosh, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's and that's the thing here is, you know, before we move off this topic completely, I think just want to take a moment also for Ohio. You know this, Zach, when Luke was here, one of the favorite things for Ohio State fans to do was bash him.
Oh yeah.
But I think they didn't appreciate just how good of a coach he was, in addition to how good of a recruiter he was, because it's been really hard to replace him on the defensive side of the ball.
Really hard. But that's the nature of fan bases and Ohio State fans specifically. I mean, it's amazing, right? I mean, the worst coach in the world becomes the best coach in the world. Like everyone in the world loved Ed Warner. Now they hate Ed Warner. Everybody in the world, you know, loved Tony Alford, and now he can't coach worth a damn, right? That's coaching. Everybody sucks when you suck. It happens to me all the time. And now, and what really is a testament to that is when another group shines, it's like, that's their opportunity to shit on someone else. It's like, like Jeff Hafley's the best. See, I told you Greg Schiano's awful. It's like, what? They're totally unrelated, just so we're clear.
Yeah. It's amazing. We got to give credit to Indiana too, guys.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
They are a program on the rise. And I respect more than anything, Partha. Remember, you brought this up about the Penn State kid, the receiver, the other. When you get down 35-7 to a team like Ohio State, this behemoth, and to continue believing, that says a lot about your program and where it's headed.
100%. That's exactly the comment I wanted to make too. Is culturally, Indiana has shown that they have some fight to them, and Penix is undeniably a very good quarterback. And
No doubt.
I mean, despite it's weird watching him for me because the way that he throws that little sidearm thing, it doesn't look as effective. He doesn't look like he's going to be as good, but man, he was really impressive. He got it done, and that it's top down culturally. It's got to be the coaching staff, the players, from the captains down, that create that kind of urge.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. They're building something. And Tom Allen is a really, really good football coach. I mean, he's getting it done. And like you said, he has developed the culture. And now it's going to be about, can they get the players in there? And they're already, I would say, overperforming, right? So if they can get better talent over the next couple of years, you could have a legit program in Indiana, which is crazy.
Yeah. And like you said, Zach, it's like you're competing with schools now that are struggling, like Michigan and Michigan State. Why would you, as a kid, as a second tier kid, think about going there when you could go to a program that the players like the coach, that the program is doing well and is on the rise? If I'm making that choice between Michigan State and Indiana as a kid or as a parent, I'm like, I'm sending my kid to Indiana.
Yeah, they got a unique kind of spot because it's a really good academic school, right? Yeah. Now they're winning at second to only Ohio State in the Big Ten, maybe Wisconsin you could throw out there, but it's a unique niche. It's like Northwestern, but better, right?
Yeah.
Like better football.
Yeah. Speaking of Northwestern, it was going to come on later, but let's talk about this team here because they stink on the offensive side of the ball. There's no other way to put it. Yet they take down a tough opponent, and they're undefeated. We've talked at length about Pat Fitzgerald and how good of a coach he is and how good of a person he is. Zach, what's the story of Northwestern?
He's extremely well coached, go really hard. It's almost like the old triple option offenses, but it's not triple option, where it's like they just know what they're doing so well, and they do it so well that it's really hard to stop a team that's that efficient. Right.
Yeah.
And I know Joey Galloway said they're just a bunch of fighting Reese Davises out there kind of taking a shot at white guys. Like I get white guys aren't that athletic, but damn, man. But it's just they're just a bunch of academic guys that know what they're doing, go hard, and they play really hard. And there's some talented kids specifically on defense, but they tackle well, they pass protect well, they run block well. They're always moving forward. And so it's going to be cool to see because Pat Fitzgerald goes on these roller coasters, right? Like every 3 years, you're like, whoa, Northwestern's good.
Yeah.
And then the next year, they're like 2-9. And you're like, damn, life comes at you fast.
Yeah. Hey, it's going to be a roller coaster when you're coaching at Northwestern, regardless of who you are.
Now, going to move forward to your favorite topic, V.
Yeah, we are.
Mr. Dabo Swinney had some shade to throw at Florida State this weekend. You want to give some color on that?
Zach, there has to be something else at Clemson that's drawing these kids, because if this is the guy that's at the top of the pyramid at your school who comes out and makes comments like this, acts like a child multiple times every year, and doesn't act as if he is the head coach of Clemson, not the head coach of, I don't know, Clemson State. I can't even think of a name right now. But to actually come out, it's one thing to think it in.
All right, hold on, V. I'm gonna play devil's advocate here now. So we all know you hate Dabo. Let's start there. All right. So you have the most biased lens.
Most of us hate him, though. Most of us. You don't care for him much either.
I love him. He's like a college football character. Okay. So what did he say that was so wrong to you?
Well, I think first of all, to come out and accuse another program publicly of forfeiting the game or doing that when you actually do have a positive case and you do have a virus, even if you think it, your responsibility as the leader of a program, and Dabo's not just the leader of the Clemson football program. He's pretty much, nobody knows who the governors or the senators of South Carolina are. He is the go-to guy in that state.
But to be fair, V, we also did the same thing with Maryland. And this might segue
But our
into a news
coach,
and
Ryan
notes
Day, did
style.
not come out and say.
I know,
Ryan
but this
will
might turn
actually-
into a news and notes style conversation. Are we not held to the same level of responsibility that we're holding Dabo to?
Yes, we are, and our coach doesn't do the stupid
No,
shit.
no, I'm saying you and I and Zach, 'cause we talk some shit about Maryland.
Look,
See, I'm gonna be honest. I disagree with V right now, and I'm not. I don't disagree on the front of the virus and a positive case, but that's why they had thresholds. That's why they had stipulations. That's like Wisconsin, in my mind, forfeited 2 games. Maryland forfeited a game, and Florida State just forfeited a game. They said we don't want to. I get it. They evaluated the risk and said we don't want to play. It's like, well, sorry, you don't get that choice. That's the ACC's choice.
well, let me play devil's advocate here. Like in the Maryland situation, they had something to gain. You know, Florida State is not competing for anything in the ACC. They're not competing for anything on the national landscape. So if you are the head of that program, right, and you know that you have a potential risk involved, and on top of that, you're not playing for anything. Why would you not err on the side of caution? And the other the main concern that I have with Dabo is that just come out and be forthright. Like you put football above everything else. And it's not just in this case. He's done it. It's not just with COVID. He's shown who he is multiple times before this. Right. And it's just not something that I am an advocate of, because as a college football coach specifically, you have a different degree of responsibility than a professional coach to your kids and to the people in your program to protect them first before you care about football. And that's really why I stand where I stand with Dabo Swinney, because it's not just this situation. It's multiple situations that he's shown this.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah,
I mean, if this was a one-time thing, you could have a different argument, but it's been over several different topics, right? That he's shown that. But that's Dabo as a person, and that's a whole nother conversation from the what happened, right? Is that Dabo kind of going on and on in the media and playing his little charades is just, I mean, that's who he is.
Let the media make that a story. They're going to make it a story anyways. They did it with Maryland, didn't they? Yeah,
right. But I think my issue is that Maryland cancels a game with eight positive tests, right? Wisconsin cancels 2 games with basically, I mean, we don't know how many because they never told us, but basically their starting quarterback got it, and that was all we really know. And they had a couple other people maybe, or, who knows how many. And they canceled 2 games. And then you watch Minnesota go out. They're down 20 freaking people, but they didn't meet the threshold the Big Ten set. So they go in and play and battle and beat Purdue on the last play of the game. Like, how is this fair that these schools could just say, no, we got the COVID bug, we're not going to play this week? And when I think about the Clemson Florida State game, they definitely had nothing to gain. But if you're just like an averagely tough guy in high school, right? And everyone in the school says, no, you have to go out back and fight like the Golden Glove boxer in the school. I don't give a shit if I'm trying to prove my toughness or not. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And that was what Florida State had to do. They're like, we're not really in the running for anything, but I really don't want to get beat 77-0. So I'd rather not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't disagree, but I think there's a difference between kind of concluding that based on logic and actually accusing a program of doing it publicly, especially because it undermines your conference as well. And I think we talked about it with the Big Ten. It's like a lot of this falls on the administrators and the people who make these rules. It's not on the individual programs and the coaches. They are going to follow and play like we know this in anything, in business and in life. If people set rules, if people can work around them to benefit themselves, they will. Yep, right. So it's on the program and the conference to make sure these type of things don't happen in the future. Not Dabo.
I think this definitely will turn into a news and notes conversation that we might just have to put into that segment. But I just want to point out the irony in this country that we tend to expect so much more out of our college football coaches than we do out of our politicians and business leaders. What does that really say about us as people? I think that's the thing that gets me about all of this stuff, right? Is like you've got, yes, we're mad at Dabo, sure, but we expect every single college football coach or athlete really to be perfect. And at the same time, like, many of us are not. And it's this weird thing that happens in sports all of the time where, I just feel like if we held business people and politicians to the same standard, we might have a different society. But then even then, it kind of brings up the question of, like, should we even have expectations for each other? Like, is it reasonable to do that when you have such diverse personalities in this country?
Well, it's always going to go to where the attention goes in this country. And the attention, you can say our priorities are messed up, but we care more about sports and entertainment than we care about politics and business. It's just a fact. So that's kind of I don't have an answer to your question. I don't know if Zach does, but I just do not like this guy, and I will not.
I mean, I personally, I think having been a college football coach, I think we should treat everyone like we treat college football coaches. We should treat the refs that way. Like in that blown call in the Minnesota-Purdue game, that son of a bitch that threw the flag should be on a podium answering why he threw that flag and made that audacious call. I think
they should have to.
Yeah, when businesses do stupid shit, it's like, whoa, timeout. No, press conference. Let's go. And we should grill them and hold them to that standard. Everyone should be like that.
I think that. Yeah, I like that. It would lead to more accountability. And
right.
I don't think if I screw up, there's a lot of things that I think I've said on this podcast that I listen back and I'm just like, yeah, maybe I was a little extreme there, but I would happily say that, And
right.
I think that's the part of culture we need to really focus on. I would love to hear more people say, you know what? Yeah, my bad.
Right. And it's like, you just look at the microscope that athletes that the athletic world is under. And it's like, no, I'm with it. Right. I mean, shoot, I lived it as much as anyone in the world ever has. Right. I'm with it. Now give it to everyone and watch how people are like, no, wait a minute. No. I don't go through my Twitter. No, like no one wants it. And it's like, yeah, well, you do it to these people. Let's do it to everyone. We'll get the maximum accountability and you know what? It might not be real. You might have to be accountable for things you didn't do, but let's just throw accountability at everyone.
I mean, and final point that I'll make on it is I do think specifically college coaches need to be held to a higher degree, especially when they're making $8 to $10 million and their players aren't making anything.
Yeah.
You have a higher degree of accountability than a professional coach who is dealing with professionals.
There's no doubt. I mean, you're developing kids, right? And you're also recruiting. You're not drafting. You're recruiting. So you kind of have an obligation to yourself and your program to put that front up at least.
Yeah.
For recruiting. Like it's almost like, I mean, if I was a real parent, like a real family, a real parent, and my kid was considering Clemson, I'd be like, I don't know, with that petulant douchebag coaching them, I don't know.
Yeah, that's why it's got to be something else that's drawing these kids, because it can't be him.
For sure. There's no doubt.
Have y'all been to Clemson?
I've been there. Yeah. I mean, it's gorgeous. I mean, it's gorgeous. I mean, gorgeous women. I went into the facility. Tom Herman and I went to talk with who was there? Their whole offensive staff. And we went to just talk football in the offseason. And we went into the facility and went in the receiver coach's room, and there is this, I mean, the most stunning woman I've ever seen in my life sitting there. She's probably 22 years old, blonde, just gorgeous. And I was like, whoa, hey, I was here to see Coach Scott. And then I've come to find out they all had an assistant, right, that helped with recruiting. And all of them were former Miss South Carolinas. It's like, whoa, like this is different. And it's gorgeous. I mean, not a strong academic school, so it's not hard to get through college. And I mean, they win.
Yeah.
That's funny,
those are good. Those are good explanations as to why they're winning.
Right.
Take a teenage kid from the South, put him in that situation.
You're like, bro, school's not that hard. You're going to go to the NFL and look at your recruiting host.
Have you guys seen that show, Blue Mountain State?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just like that.
Yep.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Now moving on to our friend at Cincinnati, did it again in a different fashion. Last week they blew the brakes off of East Carolina. This week, people need to put into context the quality of win. to go down there to Florida and win this game on the road is definitely a huge accomplishment. What are your takeaways from that win for Cincinnati?
It's a huge win. It's a huge win, and I think people are taking notice. I do my little analytic research every Monday morning, and I was shocked to see, and you will be shocked by this, that right now Cincinnati has the 4th best odds to make the playoffs.
Whoa!
They surpassed Clemson. They have a 35.4% chance to make the playoffs. Clemson has a 33.8% chance, and I'm saying this is ESPN, right? The ESPN analytics department put out this however they determine it. I'm sitting here like, whoa, like never. Now it was a huge win for Luke. They have, I think, they play Temple this weekend, and then they have to play Tulsa, who their only loss was Oklahoma State week 1. And so they got a tough game in front of them, and then whoever they play in the championship game. So to finish it out, to finish this magical season, it's not like it's already done. They still have to win some games. But I was shocked that ESPN had their odds greater than Clemson's to make the playoffs. Can you imagine if Cincinnati? Here's my dream. I said it on my show yesterday. My dream is for the playoff teams to be Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Cincinnati. 3 Midwest teams in Alabama. It would break the world.
Yeah,
it would break the country.
It would. And then to see a Cincinnati Ohio State final would be even.
Oh my gosh!
Even
if you can find
that would be crazy.
Cincinnati against Notre Dame to sneak a win and let Ohio State try to take out Bama. That would be unbelievable.
We are the Bama killers.
Or we could let Cincinnati take out Bama.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't think that one's happening. And to kind of just understanding how college football works, if Cincinnati goes through, has a magical season, makes the playoff, is Luke staying, or do you think?
I think it's got to be the perfect opportunity for him to leave. I don't know why he would leave. He's making absolutely stupid money. He's still in the state that he grew up in and loves. His family's happy. Luke's very different from most coaches that I've worked with, where he is very family oriented, and they're going to make decisions kind of like a normal business person would. Like, do I really want to move to Dallas, Texas for this little bit better of a job? I don't want to uproot my family, right? College coaches just like every 3 years, like, yep, go coast to coast. And he's not like that. And so I think the right opportunity would pull him away from Cincinnati, but I don't know how many of those there are for him. It's a personal decision. And I don't think he's moving to the West Coast. I don't think I guess like if Texas came open, he'd have to take that job. I mean, that's top 5 jobs in the country. Obviously Ohio State. And then the interesting ones would be like a Michigan or a Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see him taking the Michigan job just based on who he is either.
No, me either.
So
I don't see anybody, notable taking that Michigan job.
Nope.
I hope Dabo takes it.
I mean, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to hire a coordinator, and I already have 3 in my mind that I would hire if I was them right now. But and to be honest, even if they could get anybody, I think that's the route they should go. It's the route of that has proven to be the most successful route, and for them to go hire some Michigan man that's a head coach somewhere is like, we've tried that 3 times now. It didn't work. So let's switch it up.
Yeah.
So should we talk about their W they pulled out against, that incredibly tough opponent in Rutgers?
I'm going to tell you what, probably my highlight of my year, right, was they win in triple overtime against Rutgers. Meanwhile, Rutgers screwed the whole thing up at the end. They should have won easily. They win in triple overtime, and they go to the sideline, and Ed Warner and Josh Gaddis, the 2 co-offensive coordinators, are jumping up and down, hugging each other. And I'm sitting here like, Josh Gaddis won a national championship 3 years ago at Alabama. Ed Warner won a national championship, 6 years ago at Ohio State. And look where they are today. They have the same reaction for a triple overtime win over Rutgers. It was just, the aesthetics were hilarious.
Yeah, it was fun to watch.
At least they're on the up and up, I'm glad that they're starting to. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's disappointing. Just Michigan's real disappointing. I root for them to be good, but not as good as Ohio State.
Yeah.
I mean, most Ohio State fans are of the opinion they want them to lose every game. They hate them that much, but I wish they'd win every game and come in undefeated in the Ohio State game every year.
I love the 1 and 2 matchups we used to have in the early 2010s.
But at least be competitive. Like you think about the 2016 game with Curtis Samuel and the 2013 game with Tyvis Powell intercepting the 2-point conversion. Like even when they're not undefeated, like the competitive
go into that game.
Yeah.
And then or the other side of it, right? They're really good and Ohio State blows them out. Like those are fun when there's something to talk about, not like they're terrible and then you get to the game and it's like, nope, yep, they're still terrible. Like
yeah. And it's Thanksgiving, right? So I'm back visiting my parents today, and I grew up. So for our listeners, and Zach, you may not know this about me, but my parents taught at Fisher College of Business at Ohio State my whole childhood. So all year since I was born, went to every Ohio State game, and I just retweeted this clip. It was the final play of the 2012 game where it was Urban's first year. It was the 12-0. And I went to that Michigan game because I was at home for Thanksgiving. It was while I was at college. And man, I stormed the field with my dad. And that was the first time I ever met Urban. It was on the field just so randomly. He was just standing next to me while, everyone was celebrating.
Yeah.
And it was just like this special, fond memory. And, I think that's, despite everything, like, I would love to have those tight, competitive, intense Michigan rivalry games around Thanksgiving with the family too. I mean, that was a huge part of my childhood.
There's nothing better, man. There's just absolutely nothing better. I mean, you think obviously I was inside and it's just that eating Thanksgiving, then going to the hotel on Friday, then playing in that game. It's competitive. And obviously we never lost when I was there. So it was always a good feeling after. And here's a side note that no one thinks about is for a coach, it's always a noon game. So you're done at like 4:30. You can go home and actually see your kids. Like that 3-day stretch for a college football coach, there's nothing better than being a coach at Ohio State for those 3 days.
Yeah. Now speaking of losing consistently, let's talk a little recruiting, because might as well change the state name of Texas to Ohio State with what we're doing down there and specifically in the Austin area, right in Texas's backyard, taking now the number one quarterback and the number one receiver, in addition to the guys that we've been getting the past few years. Zach, take us into this, because I know you played a role in the start of this movement of why so many kids from the state of Texas, which I personally know from living down there, I don't care what anyone says, no state produces better athletes or better volume of athletes than the state of Texas does.
Well, better football players for sure. I mean, I would contend that Florida might have comparable or maybe even a little better of just sheer athletic humans.
Yeah, it's close.
But Texas has well coached, good students, and whatever. Not to knock Florida, but it is what it is. The education system in Florida is freaking horrible. But getting back to the actual question, I think I talked about it on your show before. Recruiting is a really interesting thing, and it happened with us in South Florida. And it's when you go into a fruitful area, a highly recruited area, it's really hard to get the first one. And for us, it was Johnny Dixon in South Florida.
Yeah.
Once we got Johnny Dixon in South Florida, then you saw the Joey Bosa's, and then you saw it's just all of a sudden it became in vogue to consider Ohio State. And it goes back all the way to Dontre Wilson, which Tom Herman signed him out of DeSoto High School. And that's kind of started it. It at least gave Ohio State a name in Texas.
Yeah.
Because Dontre was such a highly recruited kid, committed to Oregon forever. Chip Kelly goes to the NFL, and it was really luck, pure luck, that Tom signed him, because the kid didn't know where to go, and he just kind of said, okay, I guess I'll go here. And so that started it all. And then you just watch some of the efforts like Baron Browning and Jeff Okuda, and that was a huge Greg Schiano win for Jeff Okuda. And then you get those two kids, and then you fast forward a little bit, and then we get lucky to go down there and recruit Garrett Wilson, who was born and raised in Dublin but lives in Austin. So it's a Texas kid, kinda, right? Yeah. But he loves the Buckeyes, and so Ryan Day and I recruit him and pull him out of there. And then you're just watching Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then it becomes like popular, right? It's like it's no different than a clothing brand in high school. Like one popular kid puts on a Hurley shirt, and everyone's like, oh, I got to go to the mall and get some Hurley stuff. And you're like, why? It's like, I don't know, because it's cool now, right? Like,
You're touching on such a special thing there, Zach. The branding side of you building a great sports team, especially in college. I mean, and at the pro level, we see this, but the connection you can build with the community, to your point, by getting the high quality athletes, but also doing the camps, getting involved at the youth level, being a part of the community organically and for real. I mean, that's special. And clearly there's a lot of community in Texas, to V's point, that you can really foster.
There's no doubt. And the other thing is, it's like anything else. Like, you get one kid from South Florida, he comes up and hates the cold and hates the place, then you're done. You're not getting anyone else. But these kids are coming in and the experience is matching the sales pitch, right? They're finding out that it's genuine. And so then these other Texas kids come up on campus. Well, like, not right now because of COVID, but you get the point. They come around and they get to know the other kids from Texas and they hear their testimonials. And then what I used to do, once I got Johnny, it was like, I would bring a South Florida kid up and I would just text Johnny like, hey, I got some of your boys coming up. He didn't know them, but he just knew they were from South Florida. And he would come over, he'd meet them, he'd show them around, talk to them, like take them to the dorm. And all of a sudden you have kind of your super agent who's relatable because he's from that area. He's having a great experience and he's able to tell them about it. And that's testimony. And that's right now, Ohio State has like 7 Texas kids to talk to. And everyone else in Texas is like, oh shit. Yep. I want to go there.
Yeah. Zach, what is, if I'm, all-star high school athlete, like the kid I tagged you on, that quarterback who can throw 85 yards in high school. That's ridiculous. What's the pitch
for Ohio State?
Yeah.
Oh, it's really easy right now. It's all about high level development and you're going to get a great education and it's a pro's pro. It's like a pro team in college, right?
Yeah.
These kids come in and they get the feeling like, wow, like this is like going to train for the combine, but for 4 years. They go to other places and they eat hot dogs and play cornhole. And it's like, that's all fun and games. Like, we can do that at Ohio State too. We did it on recruiting trips, but the kids leave because they see this is like that, making it to Harvard, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be set for life. They go through the process and here's the development process. Here's the testimonials. Watch how hard our guys work. Go talk to them and hear how hard they work. And then look at the branding side of things. We help you build your own personal brand. And then let's look at the real life development. We're going to set you up with a network and they show you how they're doing it. Not that they're going to, because I've been a part of that. And when we first got to Ohio State, that was one of the things I did. I showed them how big the alumni base was, and Buckeyes want to hire Buckeyes. It's all bullshit because you need to meet those people and get to know them for them to hire you, right? So what Ohio State's doing right now is second to none as far as these kids are visualizing and seeing this is going to maximize me, and there's not even a lot left to chance.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and that's something that Ohio State fans forever need to be grateful to Urban Meyer for, like taking him out of context of being a football coach. I think Urban Meyer is one of the best CEOs in America in terms of developing a culture and developing a brand, because a lot of the kids that leave Ohio State and go to the NFL, they say the training for the NFL is a cakewalk for them after they've gone through what they've gone through at Ohio State, and another thing, like you said, is the development aspect of this thing. I think the kid, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but the receiver said he actually can see the development with his own eyes of Garrett Wilson from when he came into his freshman year to his sophomore year.
Yeah.
And actually visualize that what they're saying is actually happening is also a big part of it.
There's no doubt. And I will say this, that some of the stuff that was going on when I left Ohio State, and I'll give credit where credit's due. The guy Keenan Bailey that works there is a superstar in the making, and people kind of know about him now. But the stuff that he and I were doing in recruiting that I know he and Heartline still do, he's unbelievable. He makes these cut-ups and these things to show specific things, and you'll see it if you go on his social media. He has libraries of cut-ups of just random things, and he'll see someone make a play. Terry McLaurin made a play in the Redskins game. Immediately, he has in the queue a clip of Terry McLaurin doing the same thing in practice, a clip of him doing it in drill work, a clip of him doing it in a college game, and then him doing it at the NFL. And he puts it all together and sends it to me or when I was coaching or a recruit, and the recruit's like, holy shit. Like
Yeah.
you just did that drill. He did it in 7-on-7. He did it against the defense in practice. Then he did it against Michigan. And now he just did it against the Seahawks. And you're like, whoa, yep. I could see the development. I mean,
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Amazing. And I'm telling you, the kid he's not a kid. I guess he's a man. He's a grown up, but he's phenomenal. And I'm sure that now has infected the whole program. And it's just, it's really cool to see the development, but it has to be shown, right? You could talk about it. You could say Garrett looks better, but if you show specifics and growth visually to a kid, it's like, wow, like mind blowing.
Yeah,
man.
That's amazing.
Honestly, amazing. I'm about to give him a follow on Twitter. And by the way, I mean, if anyone at Michigan became a listener of this podcast, I think their program would get a little better from all the wisdom you're dropping, Zach.
Right. I'll probably
don't give up too much. Don't give up too much.
From Ryan Day, like, hey, bro, shut the hell up.
Hey, it's easy to give knowledge when you know that your program is set, and just because a lot of people who become successful give knowledge more freely because they've already become successful. And I don't think,
and you know, it's everyone else is playing catch up at that point. Who cares? Yeah, we'll tell you what we're doing. Guess what? Next week we're going to be 2 more steps ahead. So keep chasing.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And going into Thanksgiving weekend, any matchups this week that you're paying particular attention to?
Oh, let me see. I'll tell you the only games that I think. So I'm excited to watch the Iron Bowl, not because anything cool is going to happen. I think Alabama's going to win, but I just love rivalry games. Yeah. That's going to be a fun game to watch. Michigan Penn State it's an interesting game, right? Because I think Penn State's going to win. And if 0-5 Penn State beats Michigan, it's got to be curtain call for Jim Harbaugh, right?
Yeah.
Like with as bad as Michigan's been, almost lost to Rutgers, the games they have lost, if they can't beat Penn State when they're 0-5, like 5 other teams could, Jim, but you couldn't. I'm excited to watch that game. Really excited. Yeah. And then Iowa State, Texas is going to be a good one because Matt Campbell's taking on Tom Herman, and Texas has kind of bounced back from their shitty start, and Iowa State's on the verge of maybe playing in the Big 12 championship game, and it's going to be a good matchup, and I think it's going to be a really good game. And then I won't call it upset alert because I don't know that I have the balls to say that it's going to be an upset, but North Carolina, Notre Dame is going to be an intriguing game. North Carolina hasn't played up to my expectation this year, but they have kind of some endearing qualities about them. So I'm excited to watch whatever those 4 or 5 games. I think you could see an upset in one of them.
Yeah, definitely could see some upsets, especially on a weekend like this one.
Right.
Zach, thanks again for your time. Want to wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving. And we'll catch up with you next week.
Yeah, same to you guys. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Zach.
Yep.